So full disclosure, I've actually watched this video before. I watched this video in, I want to say late 2023, in the months leading up to me moving to the Netherlands. In fact, I watched a few videos from David Wen here in those months leading up to me moving to the Netherlands because I wanted to mentally prepare myself for what I was getting myself into. And given that he had made that same move to the Netherlands, I figured he was a reliable source. And he was a very reliable source. He, along with Exploring the Foreign and a few other people, really helped me get my mind ready for that cultural chasm that I was jumping across by making that international move. That said, one thing that his content, as well as the other content I consumed, did not prepare me for was the reverse culture shock that I would eventually experience after returning to the US for 3 months after having lived in the Netherlands for 14 consecutive months. Bearing that in mind, I want to revisit this video because, for starters, I don't remember literally anything about it at all. But in addition to that, I also want to verify and validate my experiences with reverse culture shock being back in the US, because let me tell you, no country has ever provided as much culture shock for me as the United States of America did. Landing back at DFW Airport and driving through Louisville, Texas on the same streets that I used to walk and drive down growing up, I felt like I was on an alien planet. So if that's how I felt after 14 months living overseas, I can only imagine how he felt after 5 years of living overseas. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this reaction because I'm very, very curious to see what he'll have to say.
I just had a nightmare that I had to choose between 40 brands of toilet paper. It wasn't a nightmare. This is the US. I always enjoy coming back to the US to see family, friends, nature. The nature is unbeatable, especially in a place like California.
One thing I will say, California does have some very nice nature. It's still my favorite state in the US, believe it or not. Has a lot of flaws. But if they could ever get their stuff together, along with the rest of the US, if California could ever follow Europe's example, I think it would be one of the best places to live on the planet.
But living in the US is sort of like living in one big Hollywood movie. It's an experience. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And after 4 years in Europe, I'm back in the US at the moment. So let me show you how I see the US now. It's time to do some grocery shopping. And of course, I hop in my car and drive 2 blocks to my local supermarket. And why walk when one can drive? Grocery shopping is an experience, an adventure. You see, I'm used to only 1 or 2 choices of brands to choose from in the Netherlands. Here, there are like 50 brands of everything to choose from.
And the thing is, all of these toilet papers are the same, more or less. They're all pretty much the same. There's really no need to have this many different options of toilet paper. Especially because generally, when you find a toilet paper that you're comfortable using, you just keep getting the same one over and over. So I really don't understand the amount of options that you have for a lot of different products at American grocery stores. But something else that I just realized, an epiphany I just had, a lot of Americans were very confused as to how I was able to grocery shop on a bicycle in the Netherlands. And that's something that I was very confused about as well before I went there. And what I just now realized, seeing some of this B-roll footage here, is that the reason why that's an unfathomable concept to Americans is because the packaging and the quantities are so large that you have to have a car. Even if you can walk to the grocery store, you won't be able to fit everything in a bike basket or in a couple of bags that you'd be comfortable carrying while walking. Because, I mean, look at how big this is. Look at how big this is. Where are you going to put this if you have other groceries to buy as well? Unless you want to go to the grocery store literally every single day, it's pretty much impossible. So that's a very, very big epiphany that I just now had. Never really thought about it like that.
From toilet paper to sausages to coffee. Let's see. Hazelnut, maple pecan. I'm gonna go with caramel spice this time. On one hand, the variety is amazing. On the other, it can take me up to 15 minutes to buy toilet paper. And oh, do you know about our national treasure, Costco? At Costco, you'll find anything and everything in extra, extra, extra large.
They also have this store called Sam's Club. I've never actually been to Costco, but Sam's Club is basically the same exact thing. It's like this warehouse, except it's direct to consumer. But again, look at these bags of chips. How many of these can you realistically fit in a bike basket and then maybe a couple of bags on the side? Saddle bags or grocery bags hanging from the handlebars. You could really fit about 5 or 6 bags of chips in a basket plus those bags. And that's just chips. Nobody's eating just chips. Maybe in America they are, but definitely normal people are not doing that. So it pretty much makes going to the grocery store on a bike or walking damn near impossible.
Everything really is bigger in the US.
Look at these boxes of cereal. I mean, it's insane.
Plus the free samples, and the cheap hot dogs, and yes, unlimited drink refills. This is America.
Holy crap, the selection is crazy. And while it's really nice to come back and see all this variety in the supermarkets from Safeway to Costco to Trader Joe's, it can be sometimes overwhelming when you have every single possible combination of coffee, toilet paper, and it can take me up to 20 minutes to buy a bag of chips. And the thing about free soda refills, while I still love the concept, and I loved it as a child, it's actually not so free because it's going to cost you in the long run in terms of your health.
It's time to go meet some friends for lunch. And on
If I'm being completely honest, this is completely off topic, but I stopped drinking soda when I was around 15 or 16. I don't even drink it on occasion anymore because that stuff is so bad for you. Something else that I just now realized, another epiphany I just had when it comes to grocery shopping and the quality of food, is that a lot of times, let's say for example, bread or fruit, they're gonna have more preservatives in them in the US, for starters, because they're allowed to do that, and in Europe they're not, and rightfully so, because, well, preservatives are not particularly good for you. But the fact that they allow for the use of those preservatives that European countries don't allow for also allows for these much larger quantities. So, for example, I don't think in the Netherlands, in my whole time there, or any other European country I've visited, I don't think I ever saw a pack of 3 loaves of bread that you could just buy. 3 loaves of the sliced bread like you could get in the US. And I'm talking full loaves, because in the Netherlands, the bread's not going to last long enough for you to be able to get through 2 or 3 full loaves.
And on the way there, I see them. Oh my. It's always a shock. The homeless. This is the part that Hollywood never shows. But life goes on.
That right there was probably my biggest reverse culture shock when I arrived back in LA after visiting Spain and Switzerland in early 2023. I was in Spain for 2 weeks, Switzerland for literally 22 hours, less than a day. And in that time, I saw fewer homeless people than I did on the bus ride from LAX, which is the airport in LA, back to my car. Literally, in just that one bus ride, probably maybe a 40-kilometer drive, give or take, mostly on the highway at that, I saw more homeless people than I did in those 2 weeks and some change that I spent in Europe. That's when I knew America is truly, utterly cooked.
It's part of everyday life in a big city. But I am looking forward to lunch and the food scene in the US. From Asian to Mexican to everything in between, there is something for everyone. And fast food everywhere, every block, every mall, every day. No wonder everyone is so big. Damn, I already gained 20 pounds. But
You know what? Come to think of it, in the Netherlands, you don't really see 24-hour anything, but you definitely don't see 24-hour restaurants in the Netherlands. And I wonder if this right here is also a key contributing factor to the obesity crisis, is the fact that at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., you can just go and get tacos, or you can go to Whataburger and get a burger and fries and a milkshake and all this different stuff that you should not be eating around that time. That's pretty interesting. I never really thought about that.
but I know I will lose it all when I get back to the Netherlands. And during lunch, my friend mentions her son had an allergic reaction, went to the emergency room. Luckily, he was fine, but they received a bill for $20,000. And then my other friend tells me about the time
$20,000 for an allergic reaction? I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say about that.
he fainted, got transported to the ER, and was handed a $10,000 bill. It definitely makes one think twice before deciding to go to the ER. And then we talk about work, which is the most American thing to talk about. And he tells me casually, it's fine, same old, had to work this past weekend. Still working 60 hours a week. And I think to myself,
if I ever decide to return back to the US, I think it would be quite difficult for me to adapt back to the American way of life, culture, in terms of working, the number of hours, the stress, the lack of vacation, the fact that people don't take their vacation days. But I do miss parts of American work culture, the drive, the ambition, the energy, being surrounded by people who are very ambitious about their careers. It drove me to become a better person, a more confident person. And to be honest, I do miss that because that is part of my DNA growing up in the US. But it's a trade-off, right? It's a trade-off between, yes, you do make a lot more money in the US, but the trade-off is time.
and then
So that's a pretty interesting one. I think my experience might be a little different than most people's, including his, because I didn't really see a pronounced difference in terms of the drive and the ambition levels of Dutch people compared to Americans. If anything, and look, I've never worked a regular office job, so maybe I'm not the most credible person to speak on this, but from what I understand, from everything I've heard about the Dutch working culture, Dutch people are more efficient. So they may not work as long of hours, but they're able to accomplish just as much, if not more, in the hours they work, which again makes them more efficient workers. So even if they're not as outwardly ambitious, at the very least, they're every bit as competent, probably because the schooling system in the Netherlands is a lot better than the schooling system in the US, but I digress. And also because they don't have to pull out all of these student loans to go to college, so it incentivizes more people to go to college and not just try to figure things out on the fly like I did. Granted, it worked out for me, but maybe I'm a bit biased because the Dutch person that I know the best is my girlfriend, and she is every bit as ambitious as I am. Rest assured, she is very, very ambitious. But I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you think Dutch people are ambitious or not. Because I hear a lot about that in European countries, that people can be closed-minded or they're not really willing to support people who step off the beaten path. But I just haven't seen that to be the case. If anything, I found that whenever I was starting up my YouTube channel, I encountered a lot of external resistance from people who didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. So it definitely happens in America. I know that for sure.
we start talking about vacation. Another friend tells me about his jam-packed 1-week vacation visiting 4 countries. And I was like, how is that possible? 4 countries, 1 week? Then I remember. That's how I used to travel as well.
And that's the thing, right? When you don't have that much time, you learn to pack everything in. I remember when I was traveling to Europe during my first time, I traveled to 10 countries in 2 weeks because, well,
Wow.
when you only have 2 weeks, you learn to pack everything in. I had this Google Sheets, the agenda every day from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Every hour had an agenda, something to do. And that's the thing, right? When you travel so far to Europe, to Asia,
Not to cut you off there, David, but another epiphany I just had. I think a big part of the reason why Americans don't really travel internationally is because if you're working so many more hours and you have such little vacation compared to Europeans, you're probably not going to want to use your vacation to do anything that's intellectually stimulating. And rest assured that going and seeing an unfamiliar place is very intellectually stimulating. I think maybe that's why Americans who do travel internationally tend to favor places like Cancun, Mexico, or the Bahamas. Places where you go to a resort and you don't even really expose yourself to the culture, much less immerse yourself in the culture, is because they're just looking to relax and unwind after having worked themselves damn near to death. They have those 2 weeks to relax, and they're going to use that to relax. I don't know, just came to mind.
From the US, and you only have 1-2 weeks. You better make the most out of your time. Now let's get back to paying the bill.
But wait, what the hell is this? Sales tax? Tip? Madness. I need to walk off this madness and the lunch. I walk towards Stanford University, which is nearby. I walk, and then I realize that I'm the only person walking. Oh wow, it's a lot further than I thought. No wonder nobody walks in the US.
And you know what? That's a shame, because California in general, especially anywhere near the coastline, has some of the best weather, in my opinion, in the whole entire world. The only place I've been to that had comparable weather was Valencia, Spain. Valencia has beautiful weather. But because of the way things are designed, nobody really walks. And this is actually a lot better than a lot of the US. This sidewalk is relatively wide. It's just that when you look right here, what are you really seeing when you walk? You're just walking by this road, and it's not a very pleasant experience. And what I've noticed is that walking the same distance in the US is much different than in Europe, simply because of the surrounding scenery, the surrounding environment. When everything is far apart, it feels like you're walking further, and it warps your perception of time. So I think that's a big part of why walking, aside from all the differences in infrastructure, I think just the surrounding environment is a big part of why walking in Europe is a much more pleasant experience.
I arrived at campus to see a bunch of tourists. American universities, especially elite ones, are tourist hotspots. The brand name, the letters, the cost of tuition. It's one of the biggest businesses in the US.
$58,000 annual tuition. That's just the tuition. That's not even including room and board. And look, some colleges actually require you to live on campus for your freshman year, believe it or not. That's insane. $58,000 a year. And at places like Harvard and Yale, I've seen students say they're paying anywhere from $70,000 to $80,000 a year. And you might be thinking, well, maybe you can just move closer. These places are expensive to live in as well. So living on campus is actually going to be the cheapest option for most students. So although going to a place like Stanford or Harvard, any Ivy League, etc., is going to put you in position to make more money initially and down the line, you have to make sure that you know what you're doing there. Because if you get halfway through a degree where you're paying this per year and you decide to drop out and you're pulling out student loans to pay for this, my friend, you are cooked.
And then I overhear some people talking about the most recent mass shooting.
A mass shooting at an American school in suburban Denver.
We are 25 days in, and there have been 40 mass shootings.
It seems like this is the norm nowadays in the US. It's sad and it's horrible. And oh yeah, the police, they beat up someone else again. What's sad is that many people no longer trust the police. And I know plenty of great police officers, but all it takes is a few bad apples to ruin it for the rest of them. Now,
that's because police only have 3 months of training in the US. Shout out to Sky, for telling me that. Or I guess he didn't tell me that directly, but sharing that in a video. I never knew that, but when he said that, all of this started to make sense.
I wonder what the news outlets are saying, because I've stopped reading the news. It's like this all-out war, CNN versus Fox. You get two different stories. It seems like such a divided country nowadays. The left versus the right, Democrats versus Republicans, the police versus the world.
And this is the thing that always shocks me when I come back now. How divided the country has become. I mean, you can literally lose a friend because of politics. The media has done a role in pitting this group versus this group as well. And it's sad because it doesn't seem so united anymore. It seems quite divided every time I come back, and it's sad. And the thing about the police, well,
And speaking of the news, I actually reacted to another video from David about why American news is very, very inferior to European news. And I dropped that video yesterday, so if you want to check that out, definitely watch that after this one.
the police, they have such a bad reputation now when in fact they should be part of the community protecting people. And yes, there have been very unfortunate events that have happened. But when I think about the majority of the police officers that I have met in the past, they've been good people, genuinely good people. And nowadays we tend to label people based on this profession. It's a bias, when in fact I think it's wrong to do that. I think we should judge people based on their character, not on a label that we attach them to. But yeah, I hope things get better. I don't think so in the short term, but I hope things get better.
But hey, at least public restrooms are still free in the US. It's time to head to the mall to do some shopping and say hello to American consumerism and overly friendly customer service people. Shopping in the US is sort of like a game, looking for deals, getting credit card points. It can be extremely fun and addicting. But this is all part of the game of American consumerism, so be careful, or else you'll be in credit card debt like a third of Americans. Well,
It's interesting because I remember I made a video maybe 4 months ago, something like that, talking about how Americans use credit cards in a very irresponsible way. And someone in the comments said that they worked for a credit union, and basically those businesses are only operational because of those people who use the cards irresponsibly. People like myself, and I'm not saying this to pedestalize myself or anything, I'm just saying that I use my credit card responsibly. People who use their cards responsibly, the people who work at the credit unions actually call them deadbeats because they do not profit off of them. So if you work at a credit union, I'm sorry to inform you, but you will not be profiting off of me.
it's late and it's time to head home. And of course, there's traffic at 3 p.m. And this guy ahead of me just cut off the cyclist. It's quite a shock to see bikes, cars, buses, motorcycles all merging together in one lane. It can be quite dangerous to cycle.
This right here, this setup, is actually very good by American standards, believe it or not. It's very good because you at least have some sort of separation here. I remember when I made a video cycling in the US for the first time after coming back from the Netherlands, I saw a few comments of people saying you just have to take the lane, own the lane, whatever. You can own the lane if you want, but unless you're willing to pay for my funeral, I don't want to hear it. Because there are many people in the grave who had the right of way, especially in the US.
In an American city. I then go and meet some friends for a drink, and I meet all these techies. And of course, I get asked the popular question.
Hey, so what do you do?
I make YouTube videos.
Oh, so you work for YouTube and Google, right?
No, I just make videos.
Oh, okay. So this is something that Americans do really well. We tend to compare ourselves against one another. It's a very competitive society. And we do this at a very young age. Which school, which college did you go to? What type of job, which company, who?
Really, what this comes down to is you're subconsciously ranking people. When people ask those kinds of questions, they're subconsciously assigning or attributing a value to them based on the pre-existing hierarchy in their heads. And I think this does come down to the way we're conditioned growing up in school, where starting from around 9th grade, so 14 years old, we have class rank. And that right there creates conditions for competition off rip. Because let's say, for example, where I grew up, if you were in the top 10% by class rank, and you know this based on your report card at the end of each, I think, 6 weeks or something like that, or maybe at the end of every semester, I don't really remember. But if you're in the top 10%, you get automatic admission, not free tuition, but automatic admission into any public university in the state of Texas. I don't know what it's like in California or other states, but in Texas, that's how it was. So rest assured, I was paying attention to my class rank, and I was focused on getting past the people who were ahead of me so I could break into the percentage that I needed to get into the school that I wanted. And it was definitely a very toxic mentality to have, because as students, we should be learning to collaborate, not to compete.
Who got promoted, it's part of the system. It's a very competitive society, in my opinion, compared to other societies. And I remember there was one time when I first started off my career, I was working in the Big Four accounting firm, and I went out to a bar with some friends. They were all investment bankers, and I was talking to this one girl who was an investment banker. And of course, we talked about what we did. And when I told her that I worked in a Big Four firm, she kind of looked down upon me and said something very judgmental, like, oh, you only work at a Big Four company. And so I just remember feeling very crappy at that point in time, like I was.
So I'm not too familiar with that industry, but is Big Four not a pretty prestigious place to be? I don't know. I always thought that anytime you hear the word big before a number in any industry, that means that you are in a very prestigious position, but I could be completely wrong about that.
Isn't good enough. But I don't blame her. It's the system that we grow up in, and we tend to judge each other based on what we do.
What a long, exhausting day. Just another day in Hollywood. Just another day in the US of A.
Well, I must say that the things he said in this video most certainly resonated with me, and they just provided even further confirmation that I made the right decision in leaving the US. Right now, I'm in Thailand, and we're going to be traveling through Southeast Asia for the next 5 years, but at the end of those 5 years, to his point earlier, I don't see America being in a significantly better position than it is right now. Honestly, I think it's just going to get worse. So at the end of those 5 years, I plan on settling down in Europe.